So what's for breakfast? This is what many, I would say even most Americans have for breakfast. They have breakfast cereal. So let's talk about this cereal for a minute. First of all, let's look at the ingredients. Whole grain oats, sounds okay, doesn't it? Cornstarch. The third ingredient is sugar. Then salt and a few additives, and then a lot of artificial vitamins and minerals added to the cereal. This is a little more problematic. This one is rice, and the second ingredient is sugar, and then some colorings, salt, flavorings, natural flavoring, etc. And a whole bunch of vitamins and minerals added. Now, the thing that most people don't realize is that these cereals are made by a process called extrusion. And this takes these whole grains and puts them under very high pressure, high temperature, forces them through a tiny hole so we get a shape like Cheerios or puffed grains or extruded grains. And this process is very harmful to the grains. Grains are extremely difficult for humans to digest, and in all traditional cultures, they had special ways of preparing these grains that actually fermented the grains and reduced all the harmful components of grains and made them easy to digest. It was a kind of pre-digestion. Well, I call that being kind to your grains, but this extrusion process is cruelty to grains. Be cruel to your grains. Because not only does this extrusion process not break down all the toxins in grains, it creates a lot more. The proteins in grains turn out to be very fragile, very much like the proteins in milk. And when they're subjected to this extrusion process, they're warped and distorted, and your body says, this is a foreign protein. I have to mount an immune response. There have been no published studies. Can you imagine that? With all the extruded breakfast cereals that people eat, there's been no studies published that show what these cereals do to humans or animals. But in unpublished studies, we know that these cereals are very detrimental to animals. In one involving cornflakes, the rats who got the box the cornflakes came in lived longer than the rats that got the cornflakes. And they seem to be very toxic to the nervous system, to the nerves in the gut. We have as many nerve endings in the gut as we do in the brain. And this is what most children are getting for breakfast in this country. I think very strongly that this is why they have trouble concentrating in school and doing well in their homework and in their schoolwork. Well, that's not what we're going to have for breakfast in this house. We're going to have old-fashioned cereal. We're going to have oatmeal. Now, again, this is whole oats, just like the oats in the Cheerios, but we are going to prepare these oats so they're very easy to digest. And we're going to do that by soaking them overnight. So let's put a cup of oats, actually this is a cup and a half of oats, into a container. I'm going to add a few rye flakes. And by the way, these are rolled oats. I prefer the rolled oats to the steel cut oats because they're easier to hydrate. The reason I'm putting some rye flakes in here is because rye has an enzyme called phytase, which oats do not have. And this phytase will help neutralize something called phytic acid in the oats. And phytic acid is a mineral grabber. It'll grab those minerals and take them right out of you. All the wonderful minerals in the oats will go for nothing if you haven't gotten rid of the phytic acid. So here we have our rye flakes, our oat flakes. I'm going to add a little warm water. So we've added enough warm water to really soak those oats. And now I'm adding a very special ingredient. It's fresh whey that we've made from separating yogurt. But if this seems too daunting for you, you can add a little bit of vinegar or even a little bit of lemon juice. You want something acidic because that will activate all the enzymes in the grains. And while you're fast asleep at night with your simple digestive tract, all these little gremlins in here are going to wake up with the slightly acidic water and pre-digest those grains for you. So we're just going to cover our grains so we don't get any bugs in there or anything. And we're going to leave it on a warm kitchen counter overnight. And the next morning we'll cook our oats and in some salt water. So just like a seed that wants to sprout, the seed has a coating on it, the bran coating, and that coating is full of enzyme inhibitors, lectins, all kinds of substances that will prevent that seed from sprouting until the conditions are right. So all of those things in that coating are like preservatives. The plant's natural preservatives, which is a great thing for that seed. But you don't want to eat preservatives, even nature's preservatives. So what does the plant need to neutralize those preservatives and allow it to sprout? 4 things: moisture, warmth, slight acidity, and time. You put the plant in the ground, it's slightly acid, it's warm, it's moist, and over time the seed will sprout. We're doing the same thing here. We have moisture, warmth, slight acidity, and overnight is our time. And then we'll see what we do with it in the morning. All right, good morning. We have our soaked oats that have been soaking all night long, pre-digesting while we with our simple stomachs are fast asleep. All the little gremlins in there, the enzymes and bacteria, are pre-digesting those oats for you. We're going to bring some water to a boil. This is about 2 cups of water with salt. I'll put about 2 teaspoons of salt in there. All right, our water's boiling now. We're going to add our soaked oats. And some people ask me, well, do I drain off the water? But that's impossible to do because the water's all soaked up into the oats. Now I'm just going to lower the temperature and let those simmer away, probably for about 15 minutes. You really want those oats to be well cooked. Now what we usually do is make a big pot of oatmeal at the beginning of the week, and then on mornings when we're in a rush, you can just reheat that oatmeal several times for a really nourishing breakfast. So here we have our beautiful cooked oatmeal. You want to make sure it's nice and soft. That's a sign that it's going to be very digestible. Again, I say I like to use the flakes rather than the steel cut oats because the flakes hydrate better and they cook more quickly. You don't want your oatmeal to be chewy. That means it's going to be hard for you to digest. So now that we have our cooked oatmeal, we have lots of options for serving it. We've gone to all this trouble to liberate all the minerals in the oatmeal, so you want cream or butter containing vitamin A so that you can use those minerals in your body. And here we have some nuts you might want to put on if you want a little crunch in your oatmeal. Some people like to put dates on their oatmeal. And if you want a sweetener, there's all kinds of possibilities. You have honey, maple syrup. This is maple sugar, a particularly delicious sweetener. So all sorts of possibilities to put on your oatmeal. Another one is raisins, coconut. Yeah, the sky's the limit on how you can make oatmeal, which is a bit bland, truly delicious. Now let's go back a minute and talk about the cost. The breakfast cereals that we were talking about, which really provide no nutrition except a smattering of artificial vitamins, high in sugar, processed in a way that makes them quite toxic, and these things are expensive, $3 to $5 a box for one of these breakfast cereals. Now we're about to eat a serving of oatmeal that costs pennies. So of course all your toppings are going to be a cost, but when you sit down to that meal of oatmeal, it's going to cost no more than these breakfast cereals.